My sister sneered across the table. Maybe if your kid had a real father he wouldn't be so off. My son looked down. I set my glass down and said, maybe if your husband hadn't left, you wouldn't be living in my guest room. He choked on her drink. Mom hissed, don't do this. But I already was. The thing is, I never wanted her here in the first place. When my sister Kara showed up at my door 5 months ago with her suitcase and her 11-year-old son, I didn't hesitate. I should have. I didn't ask many questions. She said her husband had walked out. Said she just needed a couple weeks to sort things out. Said she didn't want to be a burden. That was the first of many lies. Fast forward to Christmas Eve dinner. My house, my table, my rules, and she's been living here rent-free the entire time. She eats my food, uses my car more than I do, has never once offered to help with a single bill, and somehow manages to act like the victim in every conversation. But tonight was the end of it. The table was full. My parents, our aunt and uncle from Connecticut, the cousins, everyone in their semi-best, pretending to be more civil than they actually are. My son Mason, who's 9, was sitting next to me, fidgeting with the edge of his napkin. He's a quiet kid, a little quirky maybe, but kind-hearted and painfully smart in ways people don't always see right away. Kara's son Logan had spent the last few months making sure Mason knew he wasn't cool enough, fast enough, normal enough. I told her about it more than once. She shrugged it off every time. So when Logan snorted under his breath at Mason for mispronouncing something during a conversation about space. Mason is obsessed with space, and Kara leaned back in her chair with her wine glass like she was royalty. I already felt it bubbling. But she took it further. Maybe if your kid had a real father he wouldn't be so off. That's what she said. Right across the table. Clear enough that the entire room caught it and quiet enough to pretend it was just for me. Mason looked down. His cheeks flushed immediately. I set my glass down. Maybe if your husband hadn't left, you wouldn't be living in my guest room. She choked on her drink. My mom hissed, don't do this. But I already was. I stood up and clinked the side of my glass like I was making a toast. My heart was pounding but my head was clear. I told everyone to enjoy their food, that dessert would be out in a bit, and that starting tomorrow I'd be setting some new house rules. That was my nice way of saying, pack your bags, Kara. There was no yelling. Just a stunned silence, the kind that wraps around a room and presses down on everyone's spine. My dad asked what was going on but I didn't answer. I just started clearing plates. Mason helped me. He always does. That was Christmas Eve. The night everything shifted. The night I finally stopped pretending. The next morning she acted like nothing happened. She came into the kitchen in her robe, made herself coffee, scrolled through her phone at the table I bought in the house I pay for, like we hadn't had a silent war over roasted ham the night before. She even smiled at Mason, like he hadn't spent most of the night curled up in his blanket asking if there was something wrong with him. I waited until she went back upstairs before I opened the cabinet above the fridge and pulled out the 2 gift bags I'd hidden there. One was for her. One was for Logan. I'd picked them out weeks ago. Nice things. Expensive if I'm being honest. And for what? I took them out to the trash. By noon, I'd cleared every trace of Christmas cheer out of the living room. No tree, no garland, no lights. Mason helped me. I told him we were taking an early start on a fresh year. He didn't ask questions. The tension started creeping in by dinner. She noticed the gifts were gone and asked where hers was. I told her I'd changed my mind. I didn't owe her more than that. She asked if we could talk. I said we could once she found a new place to live. That was when she started crying. Said I was being dramatic. Said I was ruining Christmas. Said I didn't understand how hard it was to be a single mom. I reminded her I'd been a single mom for 9 years. She flinched. When my parents called that night, clearly having been fed some version of the truth that put her in a more flattering light, I told them plainly that Kara had until New Year's Day to move out. No extensions. No exceptions. And no, I wasn't backing down. They tried the guilt route. I didn't bite. The next few days were like living in a minefield. She'd slam doors. Whisper on the phone in the hallway. Blast music when she knew Mason was trying to do his puzzle books. Passive-aggressive post-it notes started appearing around the house. I ignored all of it. Logan was quieter now. I think even he realized something had changed. He still tried to bother Mason once or twice, but Mason stayed near me most of the time. He was learning how to read people a little faster now. That's the kind of lesson you don't want your kid to learn early, but here we were. By December 29th, she still hadn't packed a single box. But I had already spoken to a moving service. I left a pamphlet on her pillow. She tore it up and left the scraps on my bed. We were both past pretending. I just had more leverage. By the morning of December 30th, the mood in the house was unbearable. Every drawer she slammed, every sigh, every dramatic stomp down the stairs. It was her way of reminding me she was still here. Still making it everyone's problem. Then she finally made a move. Dragged a black garbage bag of wrinkled clothes to the front door and dropped it like it was symbolic. She stood over it like she'd just done something brave, like that garbage bag proved she was really trying. She looked at me and said, "Guess your perfect little life can start now." I told her not to leave trash bags in my foyer and walked back into the kitchen. No response, no drama. That made her angrier than anything else could have. That afternoon I took things further. Changed the Wi-Fi password. Logged her out of my streaming accounts. Took back the garage remote. Every little thing she'd been taking for granted. Gone. I also stopped locking up the guest room door when she wasn't home. I wanted her to see I wasn't worried. That she could try and play games, but I held the cards now. That night I found her in the kitchen with one of my good wine bottles. Half of it already gone. She didn't even try to hide it. Just stared into her glass and asked what kind of person kicks out her own sister during the holidays. I didn't say anything. I was done debating right and wrong with someone who twisted both words to fit her convenience. She spiraled after that. Started saying things she'd probably wanted to say for months. That Mason was going to grow up weird. That maybe if I wasn't so cold I'd still have someone. That she felt sorry for me. That I was punishing her for being the pretty one, the one who actually had a husband once. I just stared at her, waiting for her to finish humiliating herself. You know what I told her? That I was jealous. Jealous she could walk around with that much delusion and not pull a muscle. She laughed like she wasn't offended, but her hands shook when she reached for her wine again. Then she went upstairs and called Mom. I could hear the muffled sobs, the fake humility. Kara's greatest skill has always been bending the truth just enough to make herself the victim. Mom left me a voicemail later. Said things like, "Think of Logan and it's just temporary and maybe wait until school starts." I didn't respond. I think she knew by then that I wouldn't. The only time something cut through all the noise was when Logan came up to me that night. He didn't ask about the move. He just asked if Mason would still be his friend after they left. I didn't answer right away. Then I said Mason gets to decide who treats him right. That's all I told him. On New Year's Eve morning I walked into the living room and saw her packing real boxes for the first time. She'd borrowed some from the grocery store. Wrote bathroom and toys on the side. Logan was folding things for her. It looked like they meant it this time. I didn't say anything. I made pancakes like it was any other morning. That night she didn't come down for dinner. I didn't go upstairs. Mason and I watched a movie in my room, just the two of us. At midnight we watched the ball drop. He leaned into me and whispered, "I like it better like this." I nodded. Me too. I woke up to silence. Not the kind where someone's still asleep upstairs. The real kind. The kind where you know no one's coming back down the stairs, no one's waiting in the kitchen, no one's here anymore. Her car was gone from the driveway. Logan's jacket wasn't on the coat hook. The guest room was stripped. Mattress bare, dresser drawers left open like she wanted to prove a point. She didn't leave a note. Not even a passive-aggressive one. For a few minutes I just stood there letting it sink in. Then I walked back into the kitchen, turned on the kettle and started making coffee. Like it was just another morning. Mason came downstairs a little later, rubbing his eyes, hair wild from sleep. He looked around and asked, "Are they gone?" I nodded. He didn't say anything after that, just sat at the table and reached for a piece of toast. He looked lighter somehow. I think I did too. But the peace didn't last. Around noon I decided to finally reclaim the garage. I wanted to move some of the bins back to where they belonged, open up the space again. That's when I noticed it. The green Rubbermaid bin in the back corner was missing. The one I hadn't touched in months. It wasn't one of hers. Inside that bin had been a few winter coats, some of Mason's old baby blankets I couldn't bring myself to donate, and more importantly, a locked metal box. My lockbox. I kept it behind the blankets. Inside were birth certificates, my passport, Mason's medical records, my divorce paperwork, and an envelope of emergency cash I hadn't touched in over a year. I checked the closet in my bedroom where I sometimes kept the lockbox when I needed quick access. Gone. I tried to stay calm. Maybe I moved it? Maybe I loaned it to someone? But I hadn't. I remembered putting it back in the bin months ago after updating some documents. I remembered thinking it was safer out of the way. I called her. No answer. Texted her. Nothing. 10 minutes later I got a reply. Not from her, from Logan's old school. I'd called them on a hunch, not to talk to him, just to ask if he'd been re-enrolled there. He hadn't. They had no record of any request. I sat down at the kitchen table staring at my phone and realized what this was. It wasn't just a petty exit. He was trying to keep leverage. Something that could slow me down, tie my hands, force me to need her just a little longer. I sent her one message. Return the lockbox by 5 p.m. or I file a report. She responded at 3:18 p.m. Said she didn't steal anything, just needed proof of address. Claimed she'd bring it back once she got her situation handled. She didn't see the problem. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove to the station and filed a report at 4:54 p.m. The officer didn't act surprised. Apparently, she'd pulled this kind of thing before. Not with family, with a woman she used to work for. There was a note in the system. A warning, not an arrest. Something about borrowed identity documents. It was vague. But it was enough to make it clear this wasn't just desperation. This was behavior. I didn't tell Mason. He still thought they just left peacefully. I let him believe that. That night, I opened the windows in the guest room for the first time since summer. I changed the sheets, vacuumed under the bed, threw out the stray socks and half-used shampoo bottles. Her perfume smell was still faint on the pillow, but it was fading. By midnight, I'd moved my spare keys, my passwords, and everything important to a new, better hiding place. I left the hallway light off and slept with my bedroom door open. I could finally breathe again. I didn't hear from her again after the police report. No texts, no fake apologies, no excuses. She disappeared as fast as she had arrived, only this time she didn't leave room for pity. The lockbox wasn't returned. I told myself she probably tossed it when she realized I'd shut down anything useful inside. But the silence was too strategic. Too final. She knew I wasn't playing anymore. Then 2 days later I got a fraud alert on my phone. Someone had tried to reset the login on one of my old savings accounts. One I barely used anymore. It had a few $100s in it just sitting there untouched. The system flagged the attempt and locked everything down before they could get in. I changed every password again, called the bank directly, and sat in my car for 10 minutes afterward, just breathing. Not angry. Not scared. Just tired. I never told Mason. He didn't need to know that the same woman who used to read him bedtime stories was now trying to squeeze the last few drops out of what little trust one had left. Let him keep the version of the goodbye that didn't come with police reports and stolen documents. On January 3rd around noon I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring. Then it rang again. I picked up the second time. It was a woman who introduced herself as the landlord of a duplex Kara had just moved into. She said Kara listed me as an emergency contact and she was just confirming it. I laughed. Not out of amusement, it just came out. Reflex. Then I told her I wasn't available for emergencies involving Kara anymore, and politely suggested she remove my number from whatever form she had. She hesitated, then said, "Understood." That moment gave me more peace than I expected. Later that afternoon, Mason got home from school with a drawing folded up in his backpack. He handed it to me like it was nothing, but I could tell he'd put thought into it. Crayon outlines of our house, a small square of blue sky, and the two of us standing in front of the front door. Just us. No guests. No extra cars in the driveway. Just peace. He told me the assignment was to draw what home felt like, not what it looked like. I asked him if he wanted to talk about the last few weeks. He shrugged and said, "Can we get a new rug? One that doesn't smell like her lotion?" I smiled. We went out that weekend and picked one together. Soft blue with a subtle pattern. He helped roll it out in the living room, then stepped back and nodded like he'd made a final edit to a painting. The room felt different immediately. Lighter. Like it belonged to us again. That night, I finally opened the hallway drawer where I'd stuffed all the leftover junk she didn't bother taking. A tangled bracelet, some receipts, a makeup sponge, a charger that wasn't mine. I grabbed a trash bag, dumped everything in, tied it up, and took it straight to the outside bin. I didn't hesitate. She'd moved out. But now finally she was gone. And not just from the house. From the air, from the furniture, from the space between breaths. Mason fell asleep on the couch that night with a blanket tucked around him and one hand on the new rug. I left him there and turned off the lights. My house was quiet again. And this time the silence felt safe. It's been almost a month since she left. And I still find myself hesitating when I walk past the guest room, like I'm expecting her voice or Logan's loud footsteps or the sound of her hairdryer going at full volume at 11 p.m. But there's nothing. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that used to feel lonely but now feels earned. The guest room is empty again. I didn't rush to fill it. I thought about turning it into an office, maybe a little reading nook for Mason, but I haven't decided yet. For now it's just space. Clean, silent space. It's amazing how much lighter a room feels without resentment in it. A few nights ago I finally opened the photo album she used to make fun of. The one I kept in the back of my closet. She used to call it my shrine to the past. But really it's just pictures of Mason as a baby, some of me and my ex before things fell apart, and a few old birthday parties. I looked through it without flinching. It reminded me that I've always managed to rebuild, even after the worst moments. Kara hasn't reached out. No apology. No explanation. Nothing. Which tells me everything I need to know. For someone who could barely go a day without needing something from someone, her silence is almost funny. It's like the moment she realized she couldn't manipulate me anymore, I stopped existing to her. My parents have stayed mostly quiet too. They called once after she moved out. Asked how Mason was doing. I gave them a short answer. They didn't ask more. I could hear in their voices they were trying to stay neutral. I didn't ask which side they landed on. It doesn't matter anymore. I think the hardest part of this whole thing was realizing that the line between love and tolerance is thinner than people want to admit. I loved my sister. I probably always will in a complicated, distant way. But I tolerated her cruelty, her arrogance, and her entitlement for too long under the excuse that family is family. But being family doesn't mean you get to break someone and call it honesty. It doesn't mean you get to humiliate a 9-year-old boy at his own dinner table and expect a free ride the next day. It doesn't mean you get to make a mess and leave someone else to scrub it out of the carpet. I let her into my home because I thought I was doing the right thing. But the truth is, I let her in because I still believed she might be better this time. She wasn't. And that's not on me anymore. Mason's been doing better. He still asks questions, sometimes small ones. Like why Logan didn't say goodbye, or if Aunt Cara will come to his birthday party in March. I give him honest answers. Nothing dramatic. Just the truth, that not everyone knows how to treat people kindly, even if they say they love them. We've made our own little traditions now. Saturday morning pancakes, movie nights on Thursdays, and long walks after school when the weather's nice. I notice he talks more now. He doesn't flinch when he mispronounces a word or second-guess himself when he's excited about something. He's safe. And that's all I care about. The biggest lesson I learned from this? Helping someone should never cost you your peace, your dignity, or your child's joy. And if it does, you're not helping, you're enabling. I'll never make that mistake again. I still have the voicemail she left me the day before she moved in. The one where she sounded scared and small and like the world had kicked her to the ground. Sometimes I wonder how much of it was real. Maybe all of it was. But the truth is, being hurt doesn't give you the right to hurt others. I won't forget what happened. But I'm not angry anymore. Just done. Completely peacefully done. Completely peacefully done. Completely peacefully